When Daniel Carter found his driveway blocked by a massive boat, he had no idea it was the start of a war with Roger Stevens, the arrogant HOA president who thrived on terrorizing the neighborhood. Fines piled up, his car was damaged, and Roger's smug voicemail made it clear he thought he was untouchable. But Daniel wasn't one to back down, and his meticulous plan turned the tide in a way Roger never anticipated. You won't believe how this battle for justice ended, leaving a tyrant humiliated and a community finally free. The morning was supposed to be perfect. Daniel Carter, a hard-working single father and IT professional, stepped out of his modest suburban home, savoring the smell of fresh coffee in the crisp air. His daughter, Emma, was already bouncing with excitement inside the car, clutching her brand-new soccer gear. It was her first day of practice, a moment Daniel had been looking forward to for weeks. He smiled to himself, feeling the rare satisfaction of being ahead of schedule for once. But that sense of calm shattered the moment he walked down the driveway. His feet stopped mid-step. There, parked across the entire width of his driveway, was a monstrosity. A boat so large and obnoxious, it looked more like it belonged at a marina than in a quiet cul-de-sac. The boat gleamed under the sun, its absurdly oversized hull reflecting every beam of light. And as if its size wasn't enough, the name the Sea King was scrawled in garish gold letters along the side. Daniel's initial reaction was disbelief. Who even parks a boat on a suburban street, let alone across someone's driveway? He set his coffee cup on the hood of his car and scanned the neighborhood. A few houses down, he spotted him, Roger Stevens. Roger wasn't just any neighbor. He was the HOA president, a man who had somehow turned a simple administrative role into a power trip. He was standing there, as smug as ever, chatting with another neighbor like he didn't have a care in the world. Suppressing the urge to yell, Daniel strode toward him, keeping his voice steady. "Roger, your boat's blocking my driveway. I need you to move it." Roger turned to face him, an infuriating smirk already plastered across his face. "Oh, come on, Daniel," he said, his tone dripping with condescension. "It's not a big deal. I'll move it, eventually. I'm just cleaning out my yard, and there's no room to park it anywhere else right now." Daniel's jaw clenched. "My daughter has soccer practice. I need to leave now." Roger shrugged, his smirk never faltering. "Rules are rules, Dan. The HOA allows temporary parking on the street, and I'm not technically breaking any." He gestured lazily toward Daniel's driveway. "File a complaint if it bothers you that much." It wasn't just the words, it was the way Roger said them. That casual dismissal, the smug wave of his hand, the unspoken message, "I'm in charge, and there's nothing you can do about it." Daniel took a deep breath, forcing himself to stay calm. But as he stood there, staring at the gleaming monstrosity that was the Sea King, he realized this wasn't just about a boat. Roger had been pulling this kind of stunt for years. He thrived on his position as HOA president, using it to nitpick and control everyone around him. He fined families for leaving their trash cans out a few hours too long. He shut down block parties over noise complaints. He once even threatened to have someone's car towed for parking half an inch over the line of their driveway. Roger wasn't a leader. He was a tyrant. And Daniel knew it wasn't just about the HOA rules. This was personal. Roger had a history of singling out people who didn't fall in line. Daniel, who kept to himself and never got involved in HOA politics, was the perfect target. But as Daniel stood there, his daughter's hopeful face flashing in his mind, something in him snapped. He wasn't going to roll over this time. This wasn't about playing by Roger's rules anymore. It was about standing up to the self-proclaimed king of the cul-de-sac. And for the first time in a long time, Daniel wasn't going to let someone else call the shots. With a curt nod, Daniel turned back toward his driveway, his mind already racing. Roger might have thought this was the end of the conversation, but Daniel was just getting started. What Daniel thought might be a one-day annoyance quickly spiraled into something much worse. Hours turned into days, and the Sea King remained anchored in front of his driveway like a monument to Roger's arrogance. Each time Daniel looked at the boat, his frustration grew. At first, Daniel tried to play by the rules. He filed formal complaints with the HOA, citing the very bylaws Roger had so gleefully referenced. But nothing happened. No calls, no emails, no action. Meanwhile, Roger acted as if Daniel didn't exist, strolling past his house each day with an infuriating air of superiority, nodding at his subjects like a king surveying his domain. But it didn't stop there. As if the boat wasn't enough, Daniel began finding HOA violation notices taped to his door. One morning, it was for a trash can left out beyond the allotted time frame. The next day, it was his mailbox, supposedly not up to community standards. A week later, another fine arrived, claiming his lawn was improperly edged. Daniel knew what this was. Roger was sending a clear message. Don't challenge me, or I'll make your life miserable. The petty harassment turned Daniel's frustration into simmering anger. But the breaking point came one evening when he pulled into his driveway to find Emma sitting on the front steps, her face streaked with tears. He rushed over, his heart sinking. "Emma, what happened?" She sniffled and pointed toward the driveway. "A big truck. It couldn't fit past the boat. It hit your car, Dad. I'm sorry." Daniel turned to see his car, his once pristine sedan, now sporting a shattered side mirror and deep scratches down its side. A delivery truck, trying to navigate the narrow space left by Roger's boat, had sideswiped it and driven off. It wasn't just about inconvenience anymore. This was damage. This was money. Daniel's fists clenched as he surveyed the wreckage. He tried to reassure Emma, telling her it wasn't her fault, but the truth was, he was seething inside. Roger's ego had just cost him hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars, and it was Daniel who would have to pay for it. Later that night, with Emma asleep and his frustration boiling over, Daniel called the HOA emergency line, hoping against hope that someone, anyone, would intervene. After several rings, the call went to voicemail. "Hello, this is Roger Stevens, your HOA president. I can't take your call right now. Leave a message, and I'll get back to you." "Maybe." Daniel froze, stunned by the audacity of the message. But what came next was worse. Roger's voice dropped to a mockingly casual tone, dripping with condescension. "Oh, and Daniel, it's your word against mine, buddy. Good luck." The line beeped. Daniel slammed his phone onto the table, the sound echoing through the quiet house. The injustice was suffocating. This wasn't just about a boat, or fines, or even his car anymore. It was about power. Roger's power to do whatever he wanted without consequences, and Daniel's inability to stop him. For the first time in years, Daniel felt truly powerless. It wasn't just his property or his car being violated, it was his dignity. And that feeling of being completely at the mercy of someone else was a weight he couldn't bear. As the night stretched on, Daniel sat in the dark, his mind racing. He wasn't sure what to do, but one thing was clear: he couldn't live like this. Something had to change. Daniel Carter wasn't the type to accept defeat. If Roger Stevens thought he could bully his way to victory, he had clearly underestimated Daniel. What started as frustration quickly turned into determination. Late at night, after Emma was asleep, Daniel transformed his kitchen table into his personal war room. He began by diving into the HOA bylaws. The dense legal text was a headache to get through, but Daniel combed through every page with relentless focus, his highlighter streaking across the paper. He didn't stop there. He reviewed local parking regulations and dug up past HOA meeting notes, looking for any pattern or inconsistency. It was grueling work, but it paid off when he found it. A clause buried deep in the bylaws that explicitly prohibited blocking access to private driveways under any circumstances. Daniel felt a surge of triumph. Roger, the self-proclaimed enforcer of HOA rules, had blatantly violated the very regulations he claimed to uphold. But Daniel knew evidence would speak louder than words. He photographed the Sea King from every angle, time-stamping each image to prove how long it had been parked there. He included photos of his damaged car, repair estimates, and even saved the mocking voicemail Roger had left him. Every detail was carefully organized into a folder. To ensure his case was ironclad, Daniel contacted a local attorney specializing in HOA disputes. The lawyer was impressed by Daniel's meticulous preparation and agreed to help. Together, they refined Daniel's plan, preparing him for what was sure to be a contentious showdown. At the next HOA meeting, Daniel sat quietly in the back of the room, waiting for the right moment. The community clubhouse was packed, neighbors chatting in low voices as Roger, smug as ever, called the meeting to order. When the floor opened for concerns, Daniel stood up, his folder in hand. Roger Stevens has been abusing his power, Daniel said, his voice steady but loud enough to carry through the room. The chatter stopped. All eyes turned to Daniel as he walked to the front, placing his stack of papers on the table. I've been fined repeatedly for so-called violations, Daniel continued. But this isn't about me leaving my trash can out or some arbitrary HOA rule. This is about Roger using his position to harass residents while acting above the rules himself. He spread the papers out, flipping through photos of the Sea King blocking his driveway, timestamps showing how long it had been parked, and a copy of the HOA bylaw Roger had broken. Here's the proof, Daniel said, holding up the highlighted clause. The HOA prohibits blocking driveways, yet Roger refused to move his boat for days, and that's just the start. The room erupted in murmurs. Some neighbors nodded in agreement. Others whispered to each other. Daniel seized the momentum. This isn't just about me, he said, his voice rising. How many of you have dealt with arbitrary fines, threats of enforcement, petty harassment? Hands began to go up. A woman near the front stood. He fined me for leaving my garden hose out, she said, her voice trembling with anger. Another neighbor chimed in. He threatened to tow my car because I parked too close to the curb. More voices joined in, and the room buzzed with shared frustration. For the first time, Roger's confident facade began to crack. Daniel wasn't done. He pulled out one final piece of paper. And here's the icing on the cake. I reported the Sea King to the city. Turns out, Roger didn't even have a permit to park his boat on the street. He violated HOA rules and city regulations. The room gasped. Roger shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his face turning red. Daniel turned to him, his tone calm but cutting. You've spent years holding this community hostage with your rules and fines, but it ends now. A week later, the sound of a tow truck echoed down the street. Neighbors peeked out of their windows as the Sea King was hauled away, its oversized hull swaying awkwardly behind the truck. Roger stood on his lawn, glaring helplessly as his prized possession was taken away. The fallout was swift. The HOA board called an emergency vote, and with overwhelming support, Roger was removed as president. The new leadership rescinded the unjust fines and issued apologies to those Roger had targeted. For Daniel, it wasn't just about getting his driveway back. It was about standing up to someone who thought they were untouchable. That evening, as he watched Emma practice her soccer drills in their now peaceful neighborhood, Daniel felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Roger might have thought he was invincible, but Daniel had proven otherwise. No one, not even the self-proclaimed king of the cul-de-sac, was above accountability. The fallout was immediate and devastating for Roger. An emergency HOA vote saw him unanimously removed as president, his once dominant reputation in shambles. The new board wasted no time undoing his damage, reimbursing Daniel for the car repairs and revoking the petty fines Roger had issued. Roger's troubles didn't end there. Faced with a lawsuit filed by Daniel for harassment and damages, he settled out of court, paying Daniel thousands of dollars in compensation. Stripped of power, his boat towed away, and his influence gone, Roger became a pariah in the very neighborhood he once controlled. Meanwhile, Daniel's fight against injustice turned him into a neighborhood hero. Grateful neighbors organized a community barbecue to celebrate the end of Roger's reign. The street, once ruled by fear of fines, now buzzed with laughter and camaraderie. That evening, Daniel sat on his porch, watching Emma play soccer with friends. For the first time in months, the air felt lighter. Roger's boat and ego were gone, but what remained was a stronger, united community, and Daniel's unwavering pride in standing up for what was right.